Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Jupiter's CROCK, where we are on a
Still a
39.
great name.
Yeah, it's a great name. We're on a 39 episode journey through the crazy, wild, sex-filled, violent
Mongrel on
world.
mongrel!
Yes,
I
world
just
of
have to keep
Spartacus.
shouting that.
My name is Matthew. Joining me are my fellow mongrels down there in Memphis. Is Ronan.
Yep, I'm here.
And as always, Steve, also known as Spartacus.
Yep, I am here once again. I watched this episode twice because it is so good.
Yeah,
I
spoiler.
watched it twice as well, but I fell asleep when the commentary was playing.
Yeah, I watched it twice, once with and without the commentary track on it, and it was just as good both times. So this episode, we're on episode 5 now of Spartacus, Blood and Sand, and if you listen to our previous episode, you will know that that's the first episode of this series that we're like, okay, we're all on board. That's
the turning point.
Yeah, we're like, is that going to be the high and it's going to be a slow downward slope, or are we going to find something better? Now we're on episode 5. This one's called Shadow Games. Ploticus, take it away.
All right, so there are two concurrent storylines. More than that, really, but there's two big storylines running through this episode, and so I'm going to talk about them separately because I'll never be able to keep track of them otherwise. So, story 1. Let's talk about what are Ronan sucks for going all in. I kind of want to go all in too, but I'm not. I'm going to fold. The main storyline for this episode is what's going on with Crixus
Suck it,
and
bitches!
Spartacus. Yep, I made the correct decision getting out of that. Anyway,
Didn't you have a flush, though?
yeah, you had a flush.
You had a flush,
It
Ronan.
wasn't.
You had
Well,
5 diamonds.
I just saw 7-2, and I was like, I have to go all in, as per arrangements.
No, it's
Continue.
7-2 offsuit, so you failed. You did the improper arrangements.
Yes.
But I saw
Failed.
7-2, and I
failed.
fucking won that hand. Give me that. I won that fucking hand. Say
Anyways, let's talk about Spartacus.
it. Say it.
I'm still talking about Spartacus. Spartacus has been returned to gladiator training. His time in the pits is done. He has come to an understanding with Batiatus. He's back out in the training grounds, and he's practicing with Crixus. And Crixus is not taking any of Spartacus's shit because Crixus is just going all in, trying to beat the fuck out of Spartacus.
He's so
He
mad
knocked
at
Spartacus down, and Doctori tried to get him to calm down, or tried to get them to like switch, or basically stop fighting Spartacus and go do something else. And Crixus just ignores him. And then when Doctori chastises him, Crixus's response is, "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare the rabbit," which is just fucking awesome.
I think this is the first time he calls him a rabbit, which becomes one of Crixus's go-to insults, is calling somebody a rabbit.
Yeah.
Well, it's great because you're both rabbits in my book.
He's still upset
Batiatus.
about that hand.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Batiatus there's a drought, and there's been a drought throughout this entire series to this point. And Batiatus is like praying and also like chastising the gods, telling them, make it just fucking rain, for God's
Jupiter's
sakes.
cock. Make it rain.
And so, to make the drought go away, you find out that the magistrate is going to have games, another gladiator battle, and the magistrate is on his way to Batiatus' Ludus, which can only mean one
Sacrifice
thing.
for the gods.
Yep, this can only mean one thing. The magistrate wants to get someone from Batiatus' Ludus to fight in the Primus, the main event, whatever you want to call it. And Batiatus figures this out, and he hears that, hey, the magistrate's on the way, and he goes out to greet him, and who does he see? Good Salonius.
Good Salonius.
And so the magistrate and Salonius go follow Batiatus out to the training yard, or I guess like the podium, or the little place like overlooking the gladiator training arena. And so they're going to have Crixus fight in the main event. Crixus versus Salonius' man. but we don't know Salonius' man yet. And then Salonius, that skeezy guy, he didn't tell anyone. He didn't tell Batiatus who his person is. And so when Batiatus points to Crixus, the magistrate and Salonius are like, yes, it'll be a battle between legends. And Batiatus is like, wait, legends? That implies there are 2 legends that'll be in this fight. Who is the other legend, pray tell? Turns out it's Theocles, the Shadow of Death. Now, I think this might be the first time that we've really heard about Theocles in Blood and Sand, but if you did what we did and started with Gods of the Arena, you know that Theocles is basically the guy that ended Oenomaus Doctore's gladiator career, essentially.
He's the
Theocles
only one to survive against him.
Yes. The story is Theocles fought 100 people in the arena, and Oenomaus is the only one to survive, and he didn't win his fight. He just lasted long enough, apparently, to receive mercy and not be executed.
I think they're not super clear on what exactly happened to how Oenomaus survived. Did it come across to you guys that Theocles let him live out of respect, or that the Romans did? Because it doesn't seem like when Theocles is presented here that he's going to be, nice to anybody.
Yeah, I didn't assume mercy. I assumed that Theocles had Oenomaus down, was ready to execute him, finish him off, and then whoever was running the game said, let us be merciful, thumbs up.
I wish
and
they
so
would have
Oenomaus got to live.
That's possible, but of course, now that I think about it, and knowing what we know about Gods of the Arena, for example, like 100 men, they say he's made 100 fortunes. At this point, he's a free man. He has to be. He's not like
he does it for the love of the game.
Yeah, like they say, Salonius just kind of like more or less like convinced him to come out of retirement for some extra coin, but like he's a free man.
Right.
So, like, it's very possible that when he had that match against Oenomaus, like, it was just him. He didn't have to listen to, he didn't have, like, a Dominus to tell him, like, no, stop.
Yeah, because this would have been 5-6 years prior, because in Gods of the Arena, Oenomaus is recovering from his injuries to Theocles. So
no part of Theocles made me believe that he would grant mercy of his own volition.
Right.
So again, they don't show it, but I'm under the impression that the organizers of the games gave a thumbs up, and so he spared Oenomaus.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my original thought, but yeah, I don't know. I could be swayed either way. The problem is the show gives us nothing, so this is pure, wild, rampant speculation.
I will not hear criticism of this show, good sir.
Unless it's the first 3 episodes, right?
Speaking of good,
yeah,
I had actually forgotten how sleazy good Salonius is, because for whatever reason my mind always goes to other things in this first season, and had we not gotten all that backstory of Salonius and how Batiatus fucked him over and over again, I think that sort of puts the nail in the coffin in terms of our sort of, hey, should you watch Gods of the Arena first? I think you need that backstory to Salonius. Otherwise, he's just a generic one-note sleazy guy.
Yeah, you don't. Salonius is not in the first 5 or 6 episodes of Blood and Sand, like hardly at all. Like you see him greet Xena in the marketplace. There's mentions of Salonius early on, and you see him here. Like he's not a big player.
Not yet.
No, yeah, like he's a side character in Blood and Sand. He's only a major player in the prequel show, but I would still kind of argue against that and say like I kind of think it's better if you go in the other direction, because it does what a good prequel should do, and it does give you more backstory to what was a background character.
All right, well we're never gonna get through this episode. All right, so when Batiatus hears that Theocles is going to fight, Batiatus says, well, if we want to honor the gods, we need to make sure the match is fair. And, we all know Theocles' his reputation he needs to fight more than one man. Like, to balance the scales, it needs to be a 2-on-1 match. And so Salonius takes this opportunity to get revenge on Spartacus. Remember in episode 1, Spartacus kills 4 of Salonius' gladiators. And so when Badiata says, I want 2 of my guys in the ring, Salonius says, yeah, well, how about your man Spartacus? And so they all agree to this. So the Primus, Spartacus just fucked his life up a couple episodes ago by weaseling his way into a Primus, and now he's back in one. But the main event is going to be Crixus and Spartacus against Theocles. And so now it is up to Doctore to train the 2 of them for the fight. And so
in 3 days.
Yes. Doctore originally goes to Badiatus and says they can't do this. Let me fight. I have a debt of blood to pay to Theocles, and Badiatus shuts him down and says, no, train Spartacus and Crixus. And Doctore says, I don't think any amount of training is going to help. And so Badiatus just says, then prepare them to die. Prepare them for a glorious death.
Glorious death.
And Xena is horrified at this.
Xena is horrified. And that's because she has been sleeping with Crixus for 5 or 6 years now. And so I don't want to talk about it now because I want to get through the story. But a question for later is, does Xena actually have feelings for Crixus at this point? Or is Crixus just her favorite toy?
I had that same thought.
She absolutely still treats him like a slave, and yet she shows jealousy when other people are interested in him. Anyways, we're going to come back to that later because we got to finish the synopsis. So Doctore gets to work trying to get Spartacus and Crixus on the same page. It's not working. Badiatus has a discussion with Spartacus and says, hey, if you die, I can't help you. I can't find your wife. And also, if you die and Crixus dies as well, this Ludus will never recover. And then I extra can't help you find your wife. So you, Spartacus, need to take it upon yourself to figure out how to work with Crixus. And so Spartacus actually tries to make amends with Crixus throughout this episode, and Crixus is just not having it. Spartacus goes to Crixus's room, for lack of a better term, and Crixus just does not want to listen to anything Spartacus says. Spartacus keeps trying and trying, and they have this really great conversation where they talk about how Crixus fights to honor the house of Badiatus, whereas Spartacus is just fighting to leave. And Spartacus says, no, you fight because you're a slave and you don't have any choice. And
this is the first time we really get that from Spartacus, the slave stuff.
Yes. And Crixus, for his part, seems to be okay with that. He's like, I know my place. I know I'm a slave and I don't actually have any choice, but
he just wants glory in the arena.
The only thing I have going for me is the pursuit of glory. And so I'm controlling what I can control, which is my fate in the arena. And Crixus goes on to say some terrible things about Spartacus's wife that I'm not going to repeat. And so they get into another fight. Who would have thought that Crixus and Spartacus continue to fight throughout this series? But Doctore has had enough. It's weird to think, because Crixus is the champion of Capua, the undefeated Gaul. And you see Doctore basically toying with him. This is
Onomaeus.
It's not something.
He's the best in the Ludus. He's the best.
It's not something that you really catch if you're not paying attention. But Onomaeus could kill all of these others gladiators just in an instant if he wanted to. He is so awesome. Yep. But Spartacus and Crixus cannot get on the same page, and so Doctore's like, fine, if me training you isn't helping, how about I just give you an example? And so he takes off his I don't know, gladiator trainer armor that he's got on. He's covered in scars. And so he tells them about his fight with the Shadow of Death. And he says that basically every time I press, anytime I attacked, the Shadow of Death attacked and got me. Anytime I retreated to get some space between the two of us, the Shadow of Death fucking got me. And so Spartacus and Crixus are like, what do we do then? You're telling me that he has no weaknesses. He can attack when he's being attacked and also when he goes on the attack. And so Onomaeus says, there's two of you. You have to do both at once. You have to attack and defend at the same time. You have to attack and distract at the same time, meaning that when Spartacus is got his shield up, Crixus needs to be going in and whatnot. Basically, work together or die separately is what Onomius is saying.
Work as one or die as two.
Yep. And so that finally seems to make things start to click. And so later on, Crixus and Spartacus have another heart-to-heart, where they continue to talk about, Crixus is fighting for glory, but Spartacus is fighting for his wife. What kind of makes Crixus come around is he finally gets to sleep with Naevia at this point. While all this is going on, Xena and Ilithyia, who is back, thumbs up, they come back. Ilithyia comes back. Ilithyia comes back.
That woman knows how to wear a dress. Wow.
She does. She also knows how to not wear one, and it's fantastic. So again, this is yet another side story that we'll come back to. But the long story short is Xena tries to get one last night of sex from Crixus, and Crixus is just he can't do it because his mind is on the fight. And that makes Xena very sad because she just basically took the ancient Roman equivalent of a fertility drug, and she's trying to get pregnant immediately.
Yeah, she's only got a 1 hour time
copulate
limit.
within the hour.
Yes. Crixus basically pleads with her, like, please, not tonight, I'm focused, but then he immediately goes and sleeps with Naevia.
Well, here's the thing. Did he actually sleep with her, or did they just kind of, make out? Because they don't actually show a sex scene. Yeah, they don't show a sex scene.
Whichever. The point is, Crixus shuts down Xena to get with Xena's main slave. I'm gonna do something stupid and go all in.
Lucy Lawless in that scene, by the way, is awesome. Like when she starts crying and everything, and you can tell, she's got some feelings for this guy. She does not want him to die. I think there's a little bit of love there between them.
So I guess
Crixus doesn't feel it, I don't think.
Yeah, we can talk about what's happening with Xena here. Ilithyia wants a private showing of Crixus and Spartacus, and Ilithyia takes the opportunity to kind of just tease and shit all over Spartacus. But then she is very interested in Crixus, and Xena is trying to use her friendship with Ilithyia to get Crixus out of the Primus. Xena thinks Crixus is going to die. Like, as good as he is, he cannot beat the Shadow of Death. But Crixus says, no, I want this fight, which makes Xena and Naevia very sad. But in repayment for this private viewing of Crixus, Ilithyia is going to call in some medical person, wise woman,
weird midwife sort of thing that has knows the juices to help you get pregnant.
It's a woman who basically prescribes fertility treatments. And so Xena, we're 6-7 years on now. Xena has been sleeping with both Crixus and her husband routinely, and she's never been pregnant. And so there's a scene where Ilithyia and Xena are in this room, and Xena is forced to reveal that she's been sleeping with someone else, which excites Ilithyia. Ilithyia wants all the gossip, and but she doesn't come out and say it's Crixus. Regardless, this woman says, okay, well, now that I know that you've been sleeping with 2 men, you've never been pregnant, that means the problem is you and not, the men you've been sleeping with. And so she gives Xena some special tea and a winged dick candle. And she tells them that this candle is going to burn out in an hour. You have to have sex before this candle goes out in order for this to work. And then that's when she goes to Crixus, and Crixus unfortunately can't have it.
Now I got one point.
His heart's just not in it.
One point to mention here. This is the one part that I thought was a little wrong, like a minor flaw with this episode, is I don't believe that Ilithyia, because Badiatus is gone, right? So Ilithyia knows, she's got to fuck somebody within the hour. Who's she going to fuck? Because she can't call Badiatus back. I don't believe that Ilithyia would just leave and say, well, tell me later what happened here. I think that was a little convenient, too convenient for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I can see that.
I'm fine with it.
I don't feel like that character would do that.
Anyways, the point is, Xena has to have sex before the dick candle burns out. She goes to Crixus, and Crixus's heart is not in it. So when Crixus shuts her down, Xena in the background is like crying, like she knows, like I wasted this gift, this opportunity that was finally going to give I and Badiatus a kid, even though he wasn't going to know it wasn't his. But she's crying. She is so good in this scene. Like she wants to fuck Crixus. She wants to have a baby, regardless of whose baby it is. But she also cares enough about Crixus to not harm him, because Crixus says, like, love makes a man weak. Like, he basically implies, like, if we fuck, I'm going to die in the arena tomorrow. And Xena respects that, and so and lets him go. But she knows that she missed her opportunity, and so she's crying. So that's what's happening with Xena and Ilithyia. There's also another scene where Crixus and Spartacus are just being observed by Xena and Ilithyia, and Ilithyia takes the opportunity again to shit on Spartacus. But then when it's just Crixus, because Badiatus calls Spartacus away, Ilithyia wants Crixus to get naked, and so Badiatus tells him, remove your supplegaria, your gladiator underwear, and he just does it, and Ilithyia is impressed. But then Badiatus is like, we don't have a whole lot of context at this point, but you know what happened in Gods of the Arena if you watch that first. And you could just see, like, the look in Badiatus' eyes is just like, again, we're doing the sex shows again in the house of Badiatus. Anyways, that's what's happening with Xena and Ilithyia and Spartacus and Crixus. The other story that's going on is because there's so much going on in this episode. So before we talk about the final fight, the other storyline that's going on is Badiatus is trying to figure out who put the hit on him in the previous episode. And so Barca and Asher are sent out to investigate. In the last episode, they saw that the people that tried to kill Badiatus were slaves, and there's a specific mark on the slave's shoulder. And so Asher and Barca are hauling around just this chunk of man shoulder. And so they take it to this kind of crusty looking guy, and there's a tattoo on the shoulder, and so they ask, hey, whose mark is this? And the guy's refusing to. He says, "Oh, this mark is unknown to me." And Asher says, "Perhaps a closer look." And so Barca shoves the guy's head down in this maggot-infested chunk of person shoulder.
Mealworms.
And so
those are mealworms.
Whatever. It's gross. And they pull him up, and like he's got like a mouthful of like worm/maggot mush. He's like, "Oh, you know what? This does ring a bell." And so he tells Asher and Barca, this slave owner, this particular slave owner, this is his mark. And so Asher and Barca return to Badiatus. Badiatus says, "Bring the slave owner to me, because we need to know who purchased these slaves to find out who put the hit on me." And so Barca and Asher go and kidnap the guy, and Badiatus just beats this guy. He has just a fucking cup, and he beats this motherfucker, and the whole time he's beating him, he's yelling, "You fucking suck! You suck, fucking cocksucker, fuck!" And basically, like, if we
look at Asher and Barca's face, they are horrified. They're like, "Oh my god!"
If we weren't previously age restricted, we are now, just by quoting a fraction of the Badiatus rant in the scene.
Not my fault. Woo!
It's 100% Ronan's fault. But the guy reveals it's Ovidius. Like, this should not be a shock to anyone, because Ovidius is the main person that Badiatus owes money to, and Badiatus has been dodging him for several episodes now. But Badiatus and Barca and Asher, they go to Ovidius's villa. They kill everyone there, except for his kid, and then Ovidius shows up and sees all of the bodies, and he sees that his kid is still alive, and this kid has these, like, soulless, lifeless doll eyes, this creepy demon child.
Like a doll's eyes.
Ovidius, so Ovidius tells Batiatus that, like, yes, I put the hit out on you, but I was doing it on someone else's orders. And Batiatus says, if you tell me who actually orchestrated all this, I promise I won't kill you. And so the guy says,
Swears to the
Salonius
gods he won't kill.
Yep, he swears to the gods that I,
Specific
Batiatus, will
word
not
uses.
kill you. Yes, it's a very much a Doctor Doom promise. So Ovidius says that Salonius did it. Salonius paid what you owed me, paid off Batiatus's debt, and then said, in return, I want you to kill Batiatus. And so Ovidius put this plan into place, and Batiatus thanks him for telling him. And so Ovidius says, so now you're not going to kill me, right? And Batiatus says, correct, I'm not going to kill you. My slave is going to kill you. And so then Barca kills him. And then Batiatus tells Barca to burn the place down and take care of the child. Now, we don't see what actually happened to this child, and what happens to the child becomes a plot point in later episodes. But as of now, we don't know.
You see
there we
Barca's
are.
face, right? Barca,
Yeah,
when he gets the order,
absolutely does
Barca
not want to do this.
Yeah, it's like this is a step too far, man.
And there's also a Barca, the most well-regarded gladiator who does no gladiator fighting in this entire show. He is in a relationship with the Red RPM Ranger, and he keeps coming and going from the Ludus on Batiatus' orders. And when he goes back one time and then goes to leave, Red Ranger says, "You're not even going to talk to me?" And Barca's like, "I have nothing to say. Like, you know what's going on here." And so they have a little moment to themselves. So Barca has something going on here. Like, Barca's love life has more of a place in the show than Barca the Gladiator. But he tells the Red Ranger to mind the birds, and then we see Naeus give this really creepy look to the Red Ranger, which is another terrible thing the show is going to pay off later on.
I'll also point out there's a subplot with Barca and Asher, where Asher takes a huge bet, because Asher's like, they're gonna fucking die. Crixus is gonna die, and Asher's super excited because he's like, Crixus is finally gonna get fucked for good. I'm gonna be rid of Crixus, my enemy. And Barca's like, look, dude, anybody who's bet against Crixus has lost. I'm gonna put it all on Crixus and Spartacus. And Asher's like, well, that works for me.
Yep, there's plots and plots and subplots and subplots. So Barca hears that the odds are heavily against Crixus and Spartacus, and so Barca says, "I'll take some of that action." And then later on, Asher goes to Spartacus and says, "Hey, I've got some evidence. I've got something to share with you." And fucking Flush, you suck. Asher says, "Hey, I've got some advice for you." And Spartacus says, what cost? So Spartacus kind of knows the game with Asher now, and so Asher says, I'll give you this advice for free. And so Asher kind of lays out, at this point, Gods of the Arena, the show hasn't happened yet, but this is where Asher reveals that Crixus is actually the one that injured Asher. So Asher has had this, like, a busted leg for 5 or 6 years now at this point. We saw how the actual injury happened in Gods of the Arena, but we had not seen it yet in Blood and Sand. And so Spartacus is like, wait a minute, Crixus did this? So Crixus would turn on another gladiator in the house of Batiatus? And Asher's like, yep, sure would.
Well,
and
this
you
is
know
actually
that
a point to Ronan's, a point for Ronan here, because Ronan said, well, it might be actually better to watch Blood and Sand first. At this point, we don't know if Asher's actually lying or not about this, right? Because we know he's a really creepy, sort of skeezy guy. He can't be trustworthy, so when he tells Spartacus, well, Crixus did this to me, you can't trust Crixus. If we don't have the foreknowledge of Gods of the Arena, you go into it, so like, well, is he lying? Or is he true? Is he trying to get Spartacus to turn on Crixus, and that's all going to be turned out to be bullshit? So, yeah, another point towards Ronan for that.
It's the best kind, too, of, like, worm tongue kind of bullshit. It's true conspiracy theory kind of. This guy should have been on the boards posting Q drops and shit, because it's a lie that is also true. Like, Crixus
but what
did
part is
that
the
to
lie?
him. Like, Crixus did that to him, but Crixus didn't do it to turn on him, per se.
He was trying to get the glory of the kill for himself.
Yeah, see, I thought it was more interesting that everything that Asher said was true, but at the same time, Asher is telling Spartacus this because the truth furthers Asher's goals. Asher wants Spartacus to die now, Spartacus and Crixus to die now, because then he doesn't have to pay Barca.
Yeah. Well, it is, but he's also omitting the context of why Crixus did it to him.
I don't see how the context matters. Crixus wanted the glory for himself back in Gods of the Arena. Crixus also wants the glory of killing Theocles himself at this point in time.
That's true.
Now I do, yeah, and I do also. It's like when because Asher also tells him, it's like even if it was Barca, if Barca came between him and a win, he would totally kill Barca to get his win. It's like that. Like yeah, it's like that's definitely a true dynamic too. Yes.
Yeah, I think in this one scene, everything that Asher said was 100% correct. Asher is a fantastic villain, and there's just more good stuff, good/terrible.
But had we
stuff
not
from
seen
him.
Gods of the Arena, we would not know. That's my point. We would not know whether or not Asher was being truthful or not in that moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think it would be an interesting experience if someone got a cut of Gods of the Arena that removed the Blood and Sand spoilers and then watched them in chronological order. Anyways, that's a whole separate conversation. All right, so are we caught up? Is there anything else we need to talk about before we talk about the final fight?
We can talk about Ilithia's breasts some more if you'd like.
I mean,
they're great.
I've got the
Fantastic.
internet. I don't want to have you two on the call when I'm thinking about that.
I did want to bring up one thing about Ilithia's breasts. So when she pops out, I mean, she's literally popping out all over the place. Major spillage. No, because I listened to the audio commentary track. And Lucy Lawless backs me up on this, so I'm okay. I'm not going to get canceled here. I actually found it very distracting. Because I'm like, geez, like her breasts are like so front and center. And on the audio commentary track, Lucy Lawless is on this one, and she actually
makes
brings
a comment about the titties.
She brings it up, and she says the director of this episode, he was a first-time director on Spartacus. He did a bunch of other episodes, but this was the first one that he did.
The director of this episode is Aeolus. It's Michael Hirsch from Hercules.
Yeah, and apparently, Steve, I just kind of looked him up. You might be interested to know he did a bunch of stuff with Power Rangers, voices and stuff, and he directed Power Rangers Dino Fury. I don't know what that is, but he did 6 episodes of that.
I think that's the current Power Rangers episode.
Okay, well, we got your Power Rangers connection there. And
like I said, there are multiple Power Ranger connections throughout the series.
Yeah, and Lucy Lawless points out, she's like, Michael, I remember specifically trying to ask you something about this scene, and you would not stop staring at Viva's boobs. And he was like, what? What are you talking about? I don't remember that. And she's like, yes, I was trying to talk to you. And it's like you were so distracted by her voluptuous spillage that you weren't listening to me at all. And then she goes, but that's okay because they're amazing. They're great. She's like, who would not look at them? So Xena
who amongst you would not look at them titties?
I wanted to throw that tidbit in. I thought that was the funniest part of the audio commentary.
All right, let's talk about the final fight.
Yeah.
So Spartacus and Crixus are about to have this battle, and they have this moment before the fight, and this is basically the day after, Crixus has first had some alone time with Navy. I don't know what happened in that scene, but this is their first kind of contact as kind of an unofficial couple, and you can tell that they want each other. Anyway, so Crixus says to Spartacus, your wife, the reason you do all this, is she actually that worth it? And Spartacus says, absolutely. And so Crixus, this badass moment, he says, well, maybe there is something beyond glory. And then he puts on his gladiator helmet, and he's fucking ready to fight. And so they go out. Spartacus goes out first, and he gets booed to shit because, the last time they saw him, he barely put up a fight against Crixus. And then Crixus comes out, and Crixus gets
standing ovation.
He gets
huge
a
pop.
hero's welcome.
Huge pop.
Champion of Capua.
Yep, he says, Capua, shall I begin? That's like his catchphrase in the arena.
And he's
then
totally
Theocles comes
into
out.
it, too. Spartacus is just standing there, and Crixus is relishing it.
Yep, Crixus lives for this shit. But then Theocles comes in, and Theocles is this just
this fucking bitch!
Giant. Wow, Ronan. I do not condone what Ronan just said. Very problematic. Anyways, Theocles comes out, and he is a giant. I think, is he meant to be an albino in this? Like, I've never looked up his backstory, but he has incredibly pale skin and like
his tattoo
red eyes.
makes me think he's a Celt, like Gannicus is.
Now, they said in the audio commentary track that the original idea for this character, they were going to make him really giant. Like, I think they actually used the phrase Lord of the Rings giant. Like, he was going to be like 15 feet tall. And they decided, thankfully, not to go that route because they said it would cost too much money. But I was like, because they said he's 6'10". The actor is actually 6'10". So he towers over Spartacus and Crixus anyway. And man, yeah, the red eyes, it makes me think sort of some sort of albino.
Yeah,
just
that's
covered
what I
in
was
scars.
Thinking. Yeah, he's covered in scars.
Well, he loves to be cut.
His skin is just gnarly. Oh, and so, again, these games are being held to try to get the gods to end the drought. And as soon as these three people get into the arena, clouds start to cover the sky. And it's going to be very important.
The shadow of death.
Yep. And so they fight, and Spartacus and Crixus are laying into the shadow of death, Theocles. They are winning this fight. They slash him multiple times, and they both do this big slash across his chest, and then he goes down. And everyone is silent. Like, Badiatus yells, yeah, because he thinks they won. But Theocles is down, and Spartacus and Crixus just start laughing, and the crowd is cheering for them, and it looks like, they fell this giant that's never been defeated. And then everyone goes silent, and Spartacus and Crixus have no idea what just happened, and so they turn around, and Theocles is getting up, and then Theocles yells, shall I begin? He steals Crixus's catchphrase, that motherfucker.
That's gimmick infringement. How dare he?
And Onomaeus, Doctore warned them about this. Like, he told them, Theocles will play with you until he is ready to kill you. And so that's what happened here. Theocles was happy to let Spartacus and Crixus get little cuts and little slashes in to fuck with them. But now he is taking this super seriously, and he starts kicking the shit out of Crixus and Spartacus. And so Crixus and Spartacus, their teamwork completely starts failing at this point, and they start getting in each other's way. Crixus starts snapping at Spartacus. And so Spartacus gets knocked down. Like, he is down on the ground for a while. And so it's a one-on-one fight between Theocles and Crixus. And Theocles continues to kick Crixus's ass. At one point, Crixus stabs Theocles in the gut, impales him. The end of his sword is coming out of Theocles' back, and Theocles no-sells this. He screams in Crixus' face, while Crixus, to his credit, screams back.
It is the Godzilla versus Kong moment, where Godzilla has Kong pinned down, screams at him, and Kong screams back, even though he's gotten a serious ass whooping. That is exactly what happens in this particular moment. This is the Godzilla vs. Kong stole it from this show. We're going to go with that from now on.
Okay, that works for me. So Theocles screams in Crixus' face, knocks him back, pulls the sword out of his gut, and is no worse for wear. And
no
then
pain
starts beating the shit out of Crixus. He slashes Crixus across the chest, slashes him across the back, and Crixus down on his knees with his back to Theocles, and he's looking up at Naevia, and you can tell that Crixus thinks, like, this is it, like, I'm fucked, I'm gonna die. And then Spartacus saves him. Spartacus yells Theocles' name, and so Theocles stops messing with Crixus and starts engaging Spartacus. Spartacus runs and jumps. He leaps off of the shield that Crixus is still holding, which is going to be another thing that you see in the future. And so they start fighting. Spartacus still can't get the upper hand, though, and so Crixus, as he's pushing his intestines back into his stomach, the sun starts to come out, and he notices the sun reflecting off his helmet, and so he reflects the sunlight from his helmet into Theocles' eyes.
Teamwork makes the dream work, guys.
Yep. And so then Spartacus impales Theocles again with one sword, grabs another sword, and just starts hacking at Theocles' neck. And when Theocles is basically almost dead, he's got this like gaping wound in his neck. Spartacus grabs the sword that he previously impaled Theocles with and uses both swords to cut Theocles' head off. And then it starts to rain. The drought has ended. Spartacus has become the bringer of rain.
A god amongst men. Fucking great
Thanks
episode.
for watching.
I watched this episode twice. It is so good.
This is better than The Thing in the Pit. I mean, honestly, I think this is better in every way. And The Thing in the Pit is amazing. I love this episode. I love all the interplay between Crixus and Spartacus and all the machinations of all the various characters. This just feels like the most tightly, where The Thing in the Pit was more, hey, this is just like an exercise in brute force, right? We're just in on this sort of singular moment with Spartacus and having to deal with all this wave after wave of crazy, horrible, evil things coming at him. This felt like the very first episode where all of the plot, like you peeled away, there's so many layers to this onion, and all of it, you're like, I'm invested in every single plot line going on here. There's not a single plot line now in this show that I do not want to see the resolution of. And it's great. Just great.
Yeah, there's Theocles dies. And there are only two people in the arena who are upset. Salonius is not happy, and Asher is not happy. You see the shot of all the other gladiators of Badiatus Ludus are watching, like behind this like caged door. They're looking out, and everyone is so excited. Their buddies in the Ludus have taken down the shadow of death, and Asher just has this like look of dread on his face because he knows that he owes Barca thousands of coins at this point that he absolutely cannot pay off.
When the 1,000,000-to-1 sports team wins and the bookie's like, oh fuck, there's no way I can cover all my losses here.
Yep, that's Asher at this point. You also see, Ovidius is the like cousin of the magistrate who's running Calavicus. Is that his name? Something like that. Ovidius is his cousin, and so the magistrate, before the game start, he mentions, "Hey, my cousin was just killed." And Salonius is like, "Wait, what do you mean Ovidius was killed? Because Salonius hired him." And Badiatus is like, "Yeah, I wonder what happened to that." Still, one has to wonder, what sequence of events led to this? Wink, wink.
It just dagger eyes right at him. I love though Xena's look on her face because she has no idea what Badiatus did, and so like she immediately realizes, and she's just got the look of sheer terror on her face. She's like, "Oh my god, now we're really into the shit."
But it was Xena's idea. Like Xena was on board with this because in the last episode when Badiatus came home,
but they talk about the kid. They talk about the kid is feared dead and stuff. That's when she really freaks out because it wasn't true. He didn't just kill Ovidius. He killed the magistrate's like killed the little kid, killed the wife, burned the whole place to the ground.
He didn't just kill the one guy who wronged him. He went biblical and took out everyone around.
I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill your family. I'm gonna kill your fucking dog. I'm gonna kill your fucking dog's next of kin.
He went well and beyond. So I think that's more why she was giving like the terror face.
Yeah, in this particular episode is shot so well. Also, like that whole sequence of Badiatus with Ovidius, and he's just like rubbing the guy's little kid's hair and stuff, and you're just like, oh my god. I mean, John Hannah is awesome. He's such an awesome actor, and like you get, I mean, he can portray funny Badiatus. We laugh at him. He can portray like terrified Badiatus when he's getting the shit beat out of him. In this one, it's like, okay, you don't want to fuck with this guy. Like, he's genuinely scary when he wants to be. So good. Such a great... All the villains on this show are just incredible.
Yeah, it's bizarrely enough like this comes into play more like the next season, but like all the villains are good with the exception. I think the weakest link in the villain chain is probably the most important one of Glabber. Like he's probably the lamest villain out of all of them.
Glabber's not done much the last couple episodes.
Yeah, he's out.
Even in season two, he's still kind of a lame villain. Like but that's kind of his character. It's like he hasn't. But this is all more important stuff. It comes into play in the second season. Anything I would be about to say, it's like at this point, it's information that's not necessary. But
Glabber is not the villain of this season. He is a villain of this season, but Badiatus is the villain of this season.
I wonder if in that first episode on the commentary they said that Ilithyia was supposed to have a very small part, and they made it much bigger based on her performance.
They made it the size of her cleavage.
Yeah, I wonder if Glabber was supposed to have a much bigger presence in this, but they're like, fucking Ilithyia, she's a way better
Her tits look much better than Glabber's tits.
I mean, she's great. She's a great villain. I love Ilithyia.
But that begs the question, like, if Glabber was originally going to have a bigger role and then Ilithyia stole it, like, what would Glabber have done? Like, what rationale would there have been for Glabber to keep hanging around the Ludus? Was he going to show up every week to be like, is Spartacus dead now?
Yeah, I mean, they could have just maybe done some sort of storyline where more pressure was being put on Badiatus from, like, the Roman elite and stuff like that.
It's a risk that could have not paid off. The bet here is that you're going to get a second season. And we know with the glory of hindsight that they get that second and third season and prequel season. But at this moment in time, they have no clue that they're going to get another season. So this is kind of a risk when you put yourself in that time frame. I was like, okay, we're going to set Glabber up for the next season, but there's not going to be a payoff to this particular arc yet. And it may never get one. But luckily, though, it pays off because the first season is great, and they end up doing a lot more with it. Maybe because this is more references that Steve will understand more than Matt. Do you think this is where the Goku Vegeta dynamic between Crixus and Spartacus more or less truly begins? Is with this, because they start to make some common ground. There's clearly the rivalry, and this is the moment where one guy takes over being the strongest of the two. Because Crixus goes to the number 2 position after this, and he never really comes out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's as apt a comparison as I can make. This is where Spartacus becomes the best gladiator. And yeah,
but he doesn't become the best gladiator without Crix's assistance. That's the thing.
Oh, he does. Yeah, absolutely not. But I feel like the next couple episodes, Spartacus kind of unfortunately reverts to being a dickbag. Like he's kind of dismissive of Crixus to an extent, I think.
Oh, there's a moment. There's a moment in this episode, and there's so much to talk about with this episode, but there's a moment again where Vero shows he's the best human being on this entire show, where him and Spartacus are kind of like hanging out like the night before the fight with Theocles, and Spartacus is like, man, Vero's trying to pump him up, right? Like, man, no one's gonna beat you. Like, you're too stubborn to die, sort of thing. And then they have that moment where Spartacus is like, man, if the gods don't favor me, I have something I need to ask of you. And Vero's like, I will do everything I can to find your wife. I will do everything I can. It's like Spartacus didn't even have to ask. So it's setting up for something very sad coming up with Vero and Spartacus. But just that little moment, it's those little moments of dialogue and character development. Because yes, the show's very splashy, right? You got your sex orgies, you got your violence, and that's what people think of when they think of this show. But the key to why this show is so great is the writing and sort of like the quiet moments between these individuals. Like in that scene where Ilithyia has Spartacus and Crixus sort of display in front of her and Lucretia. If you look, like, they cut away to Lucretia's face, right, when Ilithyia is all up on Crixus, and like he's chiseled out of marble or whatever, she looks like she wants to strangle Ilithyia. and you know,
And she has a glorious temper tantrum in another episode, but
Yeah.
as this dynamic goes forward.
yeah, and so, but it's those little moments of seeing the reactions, and the actors are so good in this show that they can convey, you know, as an audience member, exactly what they're thinking and feeling just based on their facial reactions. Same goes for when Ilithyia and Crixus are having their sort of one-on-one, you know, and you just see like Ilithyia trying to compose herself, but like her right eye, tears just start coming out of it, and you're like, this is just good fucking acting. They don't even have to, like, when Crixus starts walking away and Navia starts taking him away, you just see Xena in the background crying, but they never cut to a close-up of her face. It's literally her back is to us, like in the background of the scene, and you just see her. You could tell she is just bawling, just the way she's sort of convulsing, and her hands are up by her face. But we don't even need to see it. It's such great acting all around. Great acting.
Yep, love it. I have nothing but positive things to say about this episode.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, it's another of the many banger episodes of Spartacus, the show as a whole.
Okay, let me look at my notes real quick to see what I noted from the audio commentary. Oh, there's a sequence. So here are just some fun facts from the audio commentary. There's a sequence really early on when John Hannah starts to get horny for Xena. And then good Salonius, of course, and the magistrate cock block him. And he walks out of the room, and he's like grabbing his dick.
I saw that too. That's so fucking good.
Apparently, that was not in the script. But John Hannah, that was his idea to do that. But Lucy Lawless says he did it in every single shot to make sure, because he was like, that's what the character would have a boner, and he's got to try to like put it down a little bit.
He's got to try.
I feel like John Hannah probably like really did have one after that scene with Xena, though, so it was legitimate.
Yeah. Lucy Lawless said that one thing that she hated about the show was, if you look at all the slave girls, especially when they have close-ups, they all have lip gloss on. And she, as a woman, notices like all of the slave girls have lip gloss, which they would not have had back in the day. And she says that was just something that kind of always bothered her. You see like the close-up of Navia, like, you know, looking at Crixus deep into his eyes, and she's got bright lip gloss on. So there's a lot of slow motion shots in this one, and the director said something sort of interesting. He said that he didn't want to overuse the slow motion. He wanted to pick specific shots in which it would be more impactful. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I am not a fan of slow motion. Generally speaking, I hate slow motion, but I think it was utilized really, really well, especially in this episode. Like, there's a great sequence when Oenomaus, he's got like no armor or anything on at this point. He just takes the two swords and whacks him in the legs, and Spartacus and Crixus go like flying up in the air and flipping around. Great use of slow motion, and the director mentioned like that was a moment he wanted to use it. They used a phantom camera. They shot it at 400 frames per second in order to slow that down. And conversely, the scene where Barca kisses his boyfriend, that was shot in slow motion. They had it in slow motion, but then they realized it looked too goofy, and so they actually like had to speed the footage up for that. Just strangely enough. And then the last
some frames.
You will address him as the Red RPM Ranger.
The Red RPM Ranger, okay. And the last thing I have here, which was kind of funny, is in the scene where Ilithyia has Spartacus and Crixus on display, you will notice that Spartacus has handcuffs on, whereas Crixus does not. And the reason why Crixus does not have handcuffs is because it was impossible for him to take off his underwear when she demands him to get naked. So they just said, the audience won't know that Crixus doesn't have handcuffs on. So that's how Manu Bennett was able to actually remove his whatever you call it, the slave underwear that they're sort of wearing.
Well, I mean, I noticed it
another
instantly.
scene that happens right after that. Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't.
well,
I just assumed.
No, yeah, I noticed it instantly,
that-
even back when it came on.
Crixus was trusted more.
Exactly, that was my thought. Was like, oh, that's a nice little bit of character. It's like Spartacus is not like they know Crixus will behave. They can't. They don't trust Spartacus. I thought that was the reason for it. I thought it was a nice bit of character, like a little sly character insert there.
Accidental character.
There's another scene that happens soon after this, and then we gotta fucking wrap up this show. When Spartacus is talking to Badiatus in Badiatus' office, when Badiatus is telling Spartacus, "Hey, I need you to work with Crixus, or I can't help you with your wife," Asher and Barca shows up, and they're like, "Hey, we have gifts, and the gift is a slaver that Badiatus is going to torture." But Spartacus is not done with the conversation. So as Badiatus is walking away, Spartacus grabs Badiatus' arm, and Badiatus gives him this look like, "Are you fucking serious right now?"
Asher does too. You see, Asher is terrified.
Yeah.
He's like, "Holy shit! Like, no, slaves don't do that."
And it doesn't turn into anything, because you can see Spartacus kind of knows, okay, I took this too far. Let me, Spartacus, back away a little bit. It's like, let me, just let Badiatus go, and then we'll never speak to this again. But that is such a great fucking scene. That look that John Hannah gives him is amazing.
Yeah. Acting, man. It's all the acting. It's all the acting. So, final thoughts, Ronan. Do you have anything else you'd like to say about this episode?
No. It's another solid banger. It's a good one. Unless we want to pad the runtime by having you talk a little bit about Manu Bennett's penis. Do you want to say anything about it, Matt? I know you're a fan.
Oh, what I love about this show.
Good.
Yeah, looks fine to me.
Good for him.
What I think is interesting about this show is that I think when people think of Spartacus and they've never really watched it, they just think, oh, it's just a bunch of naked women running around, right? And crazy sex scenes. Like, no, this show gives plenty of time to naked men running around, full frontal, and good on Manu Bennett. I had forgotten how much full frontal nudity he does in this show, and I was just kind of like, geez, again. I'm just
like we mentioned that. I mentioned it as a joke, but I do
Guys,
but
go
that
all
does.
in this hand. Don't look at your cards.
Okay.
But
It's that time.
I do that does make me think about Steve mentioned that they Spartacus and Crixus have yet another fight, and that fight they are full naked. They are full nude. It's tip to tip as they're struggling around on the ground, and it's that's an awkward thing to have to script and do as actors, but I was but it's another good moment of just sheer rage that comes out of them.
Yeah, I mean, this shows equal opportunity, and I'm fine. I have no problem with it. So if someone's uncomfortable with it, I mean, that's a you problem. Who cares? But yeah, so. That's it, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of Jupiter's CROCK. Next week, we are going to be back with the episode Delicate Things, number 6. And Steve
Why do I keep doing this?
Took all of our money. I busted.
Why do I keep doing this?
I'm only down to 1.2 million chips, fellas. So thanks again for listening. Leave a comment. What did you guys think of Shadow Games? Was Theocles as imposing and impressive as they sort of built him up? I definitely think so. I'd love to see a show just about Theocles running around doing his stuff. But we'll catch you next week.